Christianity did its best to consign the family to the shadows, a hidden secret about Jesus' life.
There's a sort of an ugly subject that's hidden in all this. Anti-Semitism is the word for it. I think if you ask the question, why are the three mystery apostles a mystery? Why is James, the leader, not mentioned and emphasized? It's ultimately because of what they represent. It's not just let's hate the family for no reason. They represent an alternative version of the faith that is very Jewish and that stays Jewish to the end. And I think there's such a distaste for that later. We have texts of early Christians past the New Testament that say, we have nothing in common with the Jews. There's this, and even the word Jew becomes the kind of word that you spit out, the Jews. That's why I think the family is written out. It's because of what they represent.
According to tradition, Paul was martyred in Rome in 64 AD. His grave is believed to lie below the Church of St. Paul's outside the walls of Rome. Above the apse is a massive golden mosaic that illustrates the victory of Paul's version of Christianity. Paul is depicted at the right hand of Jesus, with his key follower Luke by his side, and beneath him, at his feet, are the other disciples. If we were to rewrite the list of the disciples today, where would we place Paul? Would he be at the top? Would he be the 13th?
No, he would be the first, because the Christianity we have is in fact the Pauline Christianity. I would have put him first because even the church has accepted him as a first.
Although Paul wasn't present at the Last Supper or the events that followed it, it was his version of Christianity that triumphed. It was his later followers that created and used the stories of the 12 disciples to fit their own purpose. In the next part, we see how they took the story of the greatest disciple, the prince of the apostles, Peter, and used him to give the head of the church in Rome his power to rule 1 billion Catholics. After Jesus himself, the 12 disciples are the most important figures in Christianity. Their example of dedication and self-sacrifice is supposed to be an inspiration for us all. But far too often, they have simply been used as symbols of power. The next stage of my journey required me to turn investigator. In an ancient city where the greatest of Jesus' disciples is supposed to be buried. It is here also that Christianity first made its leap from a tiny Jewish sect into a global religious empire, and also where the secrets of the early movement are still closely guarded. As Paul's new Christianity spread around the Roman world, it needed a head. Rome was the most important city, and so its bishop gradually took control of the new church. To legitimize that power, he also needed a link to the 12 disciples. Today, the Pope's authority over the world's 1 billion Roman Catholics derives from the belief that the disciple Peter died and was buried here almost 2,000 years ago. About 50 feet beneath where I'm standing lies a vast necropolis, an ancient graveyard that extends hundreds of feet beneath St. Peter's Basilica itself. It's thought to date back to Roman times, to the time of Jesus and the 12 disciples. 40 years ago, the Pope announced that Vatican archaeologists had made an incredible discovery, one that Catholics had been hoping for hundreds of years. On the 26th of June 1968, the Pope declared that the actual bones of St. Peter had been found. Every year in St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, the largest in all of Christendom, Roman Catholics celebrate the Feast of the Chair of St. Peter. This feast celebrates the chair Peter is supposed to have first sat in when he came to Rome almost 2,000 years ago.
We have the 12 apostles, and amongst those 12, a special place is given to Peter. We think especially of those words of Christ to Peter, "You are Peter, and upon this rock I'll build my church."
Why is Rome important for the church?
Well, in Christ's time, Rome was the most important city of the Roman Empire. And so when the disciples wanted to make Christianity a world religion and not confined to the Jews, it was natural that he would come to Rome, to the capital city of his world.
How do you actually know that Peter actually came to Rome?
Well, the New Testament doesn't give us any immediate evidence that Peter came to Rome. But a very early tradition, both that he came to Rome and that he was also put to death here. So we have that evidence in the early years after the birth of Christianity.
There are no direct contemporary historical accounts of Peter coming to Rome, and there are some biblical scholars who dispute the Vatican's version of events regarding Peter's final burial place.
For Peter, we cannot make a seriously strong case for Peter being in Rome. We have to rely on later legendary material. Acts of the Apostles stops talking about Peter in really after Acts 15, so really after the mid-1st century there is no mention of Peter. And this suggests that all these later stories are Christian inventions.
In 1939, the Vatican began a huge archaeological dig underneath St. Peter's Basilica. Its purpose was to find concrete proof of the tomb of Peter and show once and for all that he had died and was buried in Rome. The dig was carried out in total secrecy. Only when it was finished was it revealed to the world. Dr. Olaf Brandt is the secretary of the Pope's own Christian Institute for Archaeology, the organization responsible for any excavations carried out on Vatican territory. What did the Vatican claim it had found?
Well, essentially St. Peter's tomb.
How important a discovery was that, to find the graveyard and the tomb of St. Peter?
It's important because it's fascinating. It's not important because it doesn't change anything. Because the tradition of the Church already said that Peter died in Rome, that he was buried in Rome. So these excavations changed things only if you didn't believe in that tradition. So from the Church point of view, it just confirmed what the tradition already said.
Beneath the basilica, the archaeologists unearthed a huge Roman graveyard.
So this is the general view of part of the excavation.
Exactly under the altar, they found what the Pope had been hoping for, a large memorial structure.
everybody agrees that this
that the Pope declared was the tomb of St. Peter. The Pope then called in another Vatican expert, a close personal friend. This expert came up with an even bigger result, that she had found the actual bones of St. Peter. The announcement caused a storm of controversy in the academic world.
We can make of this exactly what Pope Paul VI ordered to be written on the box where these bones are preserved. These bones are believed to be the bones of St. Peter. Paul VI probably believed those were the bones of St. Peter, and that's fine. I know other persons who believe those to be the bones of St. Peter. In a scientific context, it's difficult to produce evidence for it. But you are free to believe it.
Or disbelieve it.
Yeah.
Why the story of Peter coming to Rome and the whereabouts of his tomb and bones matter so much is because the power and authority of the Pope to rule over 1 billion Roman Catholics derives from his direct link to Peter as the first Bishop of Rome, the first Pope. At the Church of St. Paul's, outside the walls of Rome, there is a portrait of every pope from Peter to the present day. But there are some scholars who dispute the historical accuracy of this list.
If you want the most powerful church, you want to be linked to the most prominent apostle, which is of course Peter. These lists associated with popes and so on and bishops are largely later creations designed to give legitimacy to the faith of the Roman Church.
For me, the entire story of Peter and Rome appears to be shrouded in confusion, mystery, and vested interest. I needed an independent voice, someone who had tackled the story from the inside. I found an investigative journalist who is writing a book on the discovery of St. Peter's tomb.
Given the fact that the church was behind the excavations and has controlled the flow of information, wouldn't it be fair to call this at least an inside job?
I think an inside job is the only kind of